Stewart, and I've put this video together to explain 4 basic moves for reporting information, and I'll make it clear what I mean by a move in a minute. Before I get to those, let me explain a little bit of why we might be doing this. At work, you often find yourself reporting information. I would say especially early in a career, when people who may be above you, supervisors and so forth, are asking for information and sending you to find it. So think of a couple of these scenarios. You may have to help someone explain the results of an air quality study. In other words, you have to report the information you found. You may have an editor, say you're a publisher, or an editor in a part of a publishing house, and your managing editor wants to know about ebook sales. You've got to go report that information to that person. Or if you were a web developer, there are certain accessibility guidelines that the World Wide Web Consortium maintains. You may have a supervisor saying, can you fill me in on those? What are those guidelines? It's so important to report information that there are some companies that make a living doing it. For example, what I'm showing you here is from summary.com, and what the company does is summarizes books for executives who don't have time to read the books. So here are the 4 basic moves. In order to report information, you usually have to do some combination of at least 3 of these things, if not all 4. One is to identify the source. Where does it come from? Second is to name the topics conveyed by the source. What's the source saying about a particular, or what's the topic that the source is focused on? Third is describing. So what does the source say about that topic? And the 4th move is commenting. And this is more your voice. This is you talking about the implications of the information you've described. Sometimes someone's going to want to know about those implications. What I want to do is show you how those things look. Because I'm going to show you some paragraphs, feel free to hit the pause button at any time in order to stop and read a paragraph before we move forward. So the first move, identifying sources. I'll give you a few examples. Take a look at this one. You may want to hit pause for a second. Now you may ask yourself, so where in this paragraph is the writer identifying a source? And it happens right at the beginning. According to Australia's Bureau of Meteorology, it tells us where this information is coming from. Here's another example. Here, the source comes a little bit later in the sentence. The U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics reported. Again, we're getting where the information comes from. One more example. Here there are sources identified in several ways. Notice that it starts with researchers suggest. It tells us that there's a particular source. It's not very clear who those people are at first, but we have a sense that there are researchers. If you look in the middle of the paragraph, you'll notice that there are some names and dates. This is one way that a writer can cite sources. I'm sure you've had to do that in research papers. So here are some of the researchers they're talking about. And notice also on the line below that, it says Givon's 1992 noted. That's another source. So they identify sources at least 3 times. In addition to identifying sources, we have to explain what the sources are writing about. So you have to name the topic. Let's go back through those examples again. In the first example, the source was Australia's Bureau of Meteorology. The topic is nationally averaged daytime temperatures. These are the temperatures that they're writing about. The non-farm payroll example. The source was the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. The topic they're writing about is non-farm payroll employment and the unemployment rate. So they're talking about employment rates essentially. In the third one, the topic is really a comparison of nonprofit workers and for-profit counterparts. The paragraph is about primarily nonprofit workers and some implied comparison to for-profit counterparts. Okay, so we have a source, we have a topic. Readers are also going to want to know, so what are the important things to know about a topic? Back to Australia again. Some things we learned about temperature near average. In one place, average was below. In another, or at night. Also, some averages in some other places. So we're told some things about temperature. In this one, we're told some things about non-farm payroll employment, that it was essentially unchanged, and that it increased in certain other areas but declined in construction. And in this case, we're told some things about nonprofit workers. They place a high value on non-monetary compensation. They're willing to forfeit some wages for other values, and they tend to be more professionalized. So we're given some description. Finally, sometimes writers also give us implications. Implications are like, so what does this mean for readers? Why would we need to know this? Why is it important or significant? Let me show you two examples. So back again to the Australia example. In the middle of the paragraph, roughly, there's a statement that says ranking is the 5th coolest May nighttime temperature in the country's 63-year period of record. So we're not only given some numbers, but kind of what that means. It's put in a larger context. Here's the most significant kind of comment, I think. At the end of the longer paragraph I've been showing about nonprofit workers, you'll see that the writer stops to talk about what these things mean. And so take a look at that underlined sentence and notice that the writers are talking about what this might mean for people who work with nonprofit employees. So that, in a nutshell, is 4 basic moves that you're likely to do. These are moves I'm going to ask you to try, especially in an initial report. If you have questions, let me know. I'd be glad to try to answer them.